Welcome to G3 TV, where African stories come to life. The village of Umwakuma lay cradled in the dense folds of the southeastern forest, its thatched rooftops shimmering like gold beneath the morning sun. Smoke curled from clay chimneys as the first roosters crowed into the dawn. Life in Umwakuma was a dance of rhythm and tradition, where every drumbeat at the village square, every market transaction, every libation poured to the ancestors, echoed generations of wisdom and survival. The people knew hardship, yes, but they knew honor more. And at the heart of that honor stood a pact, an unbreakable bond with the gods of their land. Adama was born under a full moon, her cries rising above the village night like the wail of a spirit returned. The elders had declared her a child of omen, a blessing wrapped in mystery. Her beauty grew with the seasons, sculpted like fine pottery by the hands of the gods themselves, almond eyes that held storm and silence, cheekbones high as the hills beyond the river, skin the color of roasted groundnuts after rain. But her true strength wasn't in her beauty. It was in her will, a quiet fire that refused to be doused even in the harshest winds. Her father, Nsmaduegu, was one of the revered council elders, a man who spoke with the calmness of a river but struck with the force of a lightning bolt when betrayed. Her mother, Lolo Ifienwa, was the one who taught Adama how to hold pain without spilling it, how to smile through brokenness, how to carry family like a calabash of palm wine balanced effortlessly on the head. They lived in a compound that smelled of earth and hibiscus, where laughter was common but not careless, where every child knew the price of shame and the value of legacy. When the clouds began to turn strange, the elders knew trouble was near. The rains came too early that year, soaking the yam mounds until they rotted from within. Goats died without warning, their carcasses too heavy with flies for the vultures. The village oracle, old and nearly blind, threw his cowries and muttered of betrayal, of blood, and of a death long forgotten. But it wasn't until the masked men came that fear truly set in. They arrived in the dead of night, men with no names, no greetings, and no mercy. They didn't burn or steal. They didn't speak. They just stood. At the edges of the village. At the foot of people's beds. In the market, under the Udola trees. Watching. Waiting. Like shadows cast by something darker than night itself. And then they began to take. First it was Ogwefa Uchenna, the palm wine tapper, found hanging upside down from his own Iroko tree with his tongue stuffed full of kola nuts. Then the midwife disappeared, just gone, her heart empty, her herbs scattered like leaves in a storm. No ransom. No warning. Just silence. The villagers turned to the gods. Sacrifices were made. Goats bled into calabashes. Children fasted. But the silence continued. Adama's family was among the few still holding hope, still lighting their ancestral lamps and offering kola to the night. But they had a secret. A sickness. Her younger brother, Ikin, had grown weak, his limbs shivering, his eyes yellowing, his breath coming in fits and pauses. They took him to healers, then to the herbalist in the next village, then to a white-garbed preacher who screamed prayers into his bones. Nothing worked. He grew worse. And when the moon reached its peak again, Nsmaduegu made a choice. A desperate one. One that would set Adama's feet on the path of betrayal. He called her into his hut and spoke in whispers only the wind could carry. There is a man, he said, who walks outside the law. He can cure Ikin. But his price is steep. Adama listened, her chest pounding. He wants a favor. A promise that only you can keep. And you must never speak of it to anyone. What kind of promise, Papa? She asked. But he wouldn't say. He only looked at her with tired eyes and placed a hand on her head. You are the strongest of us, my daughter. You will carry this for all of us. 2 nights later, Adama left Umwakuma, wrapped in a dark shawl, her footsteps silent against the cracked earth. She did not tell her mother. She did not kiss her brother goodbye. She only walked. And the man was waiting. He lived beyond the hills where the old gods were said to have once danced. His compound was a place of cold fire and dead air. His eyes were like twin pits, and his smile was slow and wet like a leaking roof. He called himself Obiajulu. "I can save the boy," he said, after staring at her for what felt like hours. "But your hands must be the ones to feed the fire." She did not understand then. But she agreed. He gave her a charm, a small pouch wrapped in animal skin and tied with red string. He gave her 3 instructions and told her never to return until they were fulfilled. "When the fire starts, you must not look back," he warned. "And when the river cries, you must laugh. That is the price." She nodded, her heart a drum in her chest. When Adama returned, the rains had stopped. Ikin was better, his breath deeper, his strength returning. The villagers said it was a miracle. They danced. They rejoiced. But Adama only smiled faintly, because she knew the fire had started, and it was waiting to burn. The whispers began like a distant wind treading through the village bamboo fences, soft at first, then louder, more restless, as if the trees themselves had mouths and memories. They spoke of strange things. Sacred trees with broken back bleeding black sap. A newborn goat with 2 heads. The village stream turning cloudy at noon without rainfall. Elders said it was a warning. The youth said it was bad luck. The oracle, now too frail to sit unaided, said nothing, but the silence felt heavier than any prophecy. Adama remained quiet. She rose with the sun each morning, fetched water from the stream like the other maidens, and helped her mother dry cassava in the courtyard. She smiled when she needed to, laughed when required, but deep within her, something moved like an old door creaking on its hinges. Ikin walked again, strong and even mischievous. He called her my angel now, hugged her tight in the evenings, and danced when the drumbeat rose from the square. To others, she was a sister of blessing. But in her own eyes, she saw only the shadow of a deal made in a house with no windows. Then one morning, the first child vanished. Her name was Chinoza. Barely 7. Her slippers were found beside the village stream, one caught in the reeds, the other floating like a leaf over sorrow. The villagers searched, cried, wailed, poured libations. A ritual dance was performed beside the sacred tea river. But Chinoza did not return. Adama's fingers clutched the rim of her clay cup tighter than usual. Her mother noticed. "You've not eaten well since yesterday," Lolo Ifimwa said softly, laying a hand on her back. "What troubles you, NWAM?" Adama forced a smile. "I'm just tired, Mama." But her sleep brought no rest. In her dreams, she saw Obiajulu sitting in a chair made of old bones, stirring a pot that hissed but did not boil. She heard him hum a tune she did not know, yet remembered. "The river has cried," he said without looking up. "Why are you not laughing?" She woke in sweat. 2 more children disappeared in the weeks that followed. A boy this time, Obina, the blacksmith's son, and then little Ifinania, whose mother had only just weaned her. Their mothers became ghosts in wrappers, walking around the market with eyes like empty god shells. The council elders met in hushed urgency. The old rituals were repeated. Ancestral shrines were cleansed. A sacrificial goat was tied at the village crossroads, but it escaped without struggle. A sign, the priest said, that the gods had rejected their offering. Something was out of balance. Something deep. Adama stopped going to the stream. She stopped looking people in the eyes. She could no longer bear the weight of being praised for her brother's healing, while mothers wept over empty mouths. And then one night, Obiajulu came to her again, not in a dream this time, but real, standing at the edge of her compound like a shadow with breath. "You fed the fire," he whispered, eyes glowing like oil lamps in wind. Now the wind carries the smoke. Adama's knees weakened. "What more do you want from me?" she asked, trembling. He smiled. "Only what you already promised. One last task, and your family will remain untouched forever." She clenched her fists. "No more blood. No more children." He tilted his head. "Who said anything about children?" He handed her a folded piece of bark, sealed with wax. "When the cock crows 3 times, give this to the chief priest. Tell him nothing. If he opens it, he dies. If he delivers it, balance will be restored. But if you refuse..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Adama watched him disappear into the darkness like mist curling back into the trees. The folded bark felt heavier than any stone she'd ever carried. The next morning, she rose before the stars dimmed. She walked through the misty village paths, her feet silent over dew-wet grass. Her heart tottered with each step, torn between loyalty to the innocent and fear for the ones she loved. She reached the shrine just as the cock crowed a second time. The chief priest was already there, arranging white chalk circles and whispering into the wind. His face, painted in sacred ash, looked ancient, ageless. He turned when he sensed her presence. "Adama, you should not be here." She said nothing. Her hands trembled as she extended the folded bark. He stared at it, his eyes narrowing. "Who gave you this?" "Deliver it," she said, her voice hoarse. "Don't open it." He studied her for a long time, his hands hovering above the scroll like a man afraid to touch a snake. Finally, he nodded. He took it. And for the first time in weeks, the air in Umwakuma shifted. That afternoon, rain fell, light, sweet rain that smelled of new beginnings. Women danced. Children ran barefoot through puddles. The elders declared it a sign that the gods had accepted their penance. But Adama did not smile. Because that night, her father's compound was surrounded by villagers holding torches. And one by one, the secrets began to unravel. A young hunter had followed her to the shrine that morning. He had seen the exchange. He had reported it to the council. The chief priest, when confronted, admitted the scroll burst into flame moments after being handed to him. No ashes remained. Only a mark on his palm that resembled a coiled serpent. "What did you give him?" they demanded. Adama stood in the center of the crowd, her family behind her, confused, afraid. "I saved my brother," she said, voice steady. "And yes, I made a deal. One that kept this house whole." The cries came like thunder. "You brought evil upon us. You fed our children to the shadows." "Which?" her mother sobbed. Her father tried to speak but was drowned by the noise. The council declared her cursed. The punishment was swift. She was to be exiled before the next moon rose. Alone. Without name. Without family. Adama did not weep as they dragged her to the edge of the forest, her hands bound, a single bag of food thrown at her feet. Her eyes only searched her mother's. And in that gaze was a storm of love and loss. Ikin ran after her, held her legs, cried until the guards pushed him back. "Don't go, Adama. Please." But she had already turned. She had already begun her walk into the forest. The forest was no longer just trees and underbrush. It was memory and punishment woven into shadows. Every path Adama took felt unfamiliar, even though she had walked these woods many times as a child to fetch herbs with her mother. But now the trees whispered her name like a curse. Adama. Adama. The deeper she walked, the more the world she once knew became a distant echo. The birds sang unfamiliar songs. The wind hissed like 1,000 tongues speaking secrets too old for human ears. She didn't know where she was going, only that she could not return. By the third day, the food was gone. Her throat was dry, lips cracked, and her body weak. She found a small stream, cupped water in her palms, and drank slowly, her reflection distorted in the ripples, half girl, half ghost. That night, she slept beneath a tree, cradling her knees to her chest. And that was when she dreamt again. This time, the dream didn't begin with Obiajulu. It began with her village. She saw Mwakuma from above, as if she floated in the sky like a kite without string. She saw the people laughing, rebuilding, healing. Her mother teaching young girls how to boil roots. Ikin chasing a goat around the yard. The village square alive with music. But in the center of it all stood a tree, tall, blackened, with leaves that dripped ink instead of dew. From the roots of the tree, a face began to rise. It was Obiajulu's. "You gave me entry," he said. "But now you have a choice." Adama stepped closer in the dream, her fear somehow dulled by exhaustion. What choice? To complete the pact, or to end it? But you must understand, ending it has a price. She looked into his eyes. They were no longer red. They were hollow. "What price?" she asked. He lifted a hand. Behind him, shadows moved. Children's faces. Women. Men. All blood, like smoke caught mid-scream. "If you end it, I return. But not alone. You will burn the thread you tied. You will suffer. But you will save more than just your family. You will save your village." She stood still for a long time. Then she reached into her chest, not physically, but in the way dreams allow, and pulled out the cold memory of that night. The night she entered his shrine. The night she battered love for life. It shimmered like silk in her palm, fragile and bright. And then she set it on fire. She woke up screaming. The flames were real. The bark on the tree above her had caught fire, blazing without consuming. Around her, the air felt thick, heavy with energy. And then Obiajulu appeared, no longer a man, but a thing shaped like hunger, regret, and rage. "You dare break the bond," he roared, eyes flashing like lightning. Adama stood, barely able to hold herself up, and shouted back, "I release what I offer. Take me, but leave my people." The ground cracked beneath her feet. The forest howled. But then, from deep within her, deeper than blood, deeper than fear, came a voice. Not hers. A voice of something older, something that had lived in her lineage long before the first pact was made. "No more," the voice said. Obiajulu stumbled back, as if struck. A figure stepped from the trees, a woman dressed in a wrapper made of woven light. Her face resembled Adama's, only older, ageless. Her eyes were deep pools of memory. "I am Nem, mother of this bloodline," she said. "Your deal was made in desperation, but our strength is not in bargains, it is in sacrifice born of love. You have done enough." She reached for Adama's hands, and the bindings that had followed her since exile crumbled into dust. She turned to Obiajulu, whose form began to shrink, his shadow bleeding back into the ground. "Go," she whispered, "and never return." The forest stilled. When Adama awoke again, she was lying on the outskirts of Umakuma. The village gate loomed ahead, touched and quiet. She was weak, but alive. At first, no one believed it was her. The guards froze when they saw her walking toward them, pale, worn, but eyes blazing with something that did not break even in exile. Word spread faster than bushfire. Elders gathered. mothers whispered. Children peeked from behind pots. Ikin was the first to run to her. He clung to her with arms that had grown stronger in her absence. His tears fell hot on her torn wrapper. I knew you would return, he said. Her parents came next. Her father bowed before her. Her mother held her like a second birth. They wept not just because she was alive, but because somehow, they knew, without being told, that something had ended. And something new had begun. It took time, but the truth emerged. The chief priest spoke of visions. The council reviewed the signs. The village oracle, now no longer mute, declared that the darkness had been lifted not by violence, but by a single woman's willingness to sacrifice her soul to preserve others. Umwakuma named a new shrine after her. Not to worship, but to remember. In the years that followed, Adama never left again. She became the healer of the village. Not just of bodies, but of spirits. People brought their fears to her doorstep and found peace. The girls she mentored grew strong and wise. And her brother, Ikin, who once lay close to death, became the village's youngest ever storyteller, recounting tales of a sister who fought shadows not with swords, but with choice. She married eventually, not a warrior, not a prince, but a quiet man who listened when she wept and never asked her to explain. Together they planted trees. Real trees. Trees whose roots held the soil firm. And every year, on the anniversary of her return, the villagers would gather under the largest Iroko tree and sing the song of the woman who betrayed her village to save her family, and in the end, save them all. There was no statue, no feast, just presence. And presence, in the end, was enough.